Tickets. Tickets, please.
Your soul.
Step inside. Take a ride upon the terror train. All aboard, be fair warned, these rails house fear and pain. Find a seat, don't mind the heat, just pray the lights stay on. Upon these rails, these bloody rails, in darkness lies no dawn. Yes, step inside, come crawl or glide, with us you shall remain. Upon this ride, this hellish ride, we call the terror train. Ticket, please. James Ward Kirk Publications presents Terror Train. Episode 102, Chicago, Long Island, and Detroit.
Welcome aboard. Welcome to my home. I am the Disembodied Voice, your ghost host, so to speak. Call me Terror. Welcome to my train. Be you dead, undead, or of the living. One of our passengers this evening has returned to the car of terror. Yes, that's right. My car. To relate yet two poems to help dim the lights way down low. Assuring his permanent seat upon this hellish ride. The first touched in blood upon his ticket reads, Midnight at the train station. Listen, will you? Enjoy the silent screams of Roger Cowin.
Ticket, please. Midnight at the Train Station by Roger Cowin. The atmosphere is pure noir. Lots of subdued lighting. Shadows that stretch from the cinderblock walls and clutch at your coat as you pass. All color has been bleached from the scene. It is as antiseptic as the black and white images in an old movie. The only intimation of color comes from the ruby lips of a beautiful woman, staring anxiously as the arrivals board. Her face is pale and wounded, but exquisitely beautiful. It's as if she has been walking on broken glass all her life. She has just betrayed her boyfriend, a notorious gangster. She has taken what money she had hidden away and bought a one-way ticket to any town. She'll come to a bad end, no doubt. That man over there reading a newspaper, dressed in a trench coat, with a grey fedora pulled down to cover his eyes, is a Russian spy. You can tell by the way his lips curl in a sadistic sneer, and the manner in which his eyes shift constantly, noticing everything. He is waiting for a man who will bring him the secrets to America's newest weapon. Afterwards, he is to inject the man with a mysterious poison that will kill him many hours from now, far away from the scene of the crime. A handsome man in a pinstriped suit gets off a recently arrived train. He carries his coat over one arm, a black attaché case in his other hand. He smiles and puts down his briefcase, waves to a pretty young woman who has been awaiting his arrival for hours. She squeals and runs into his open arms. They laugh and share a long, impassioned kiss. Later, he will be framed for his partner's murder, and will be forced to run for his life. Across the back roads of America, he will pursue the man who holds the key to his innocence. A Methuselah of a black man shuffles by, pushing a broom. He's wearing a pair of dirty grey dungarees and a blue chambray shirt. A hoop of keys jangle on his hip. A Chesterfield king dangles from his lips. He's been pushing this broom for 100 years, and he knows all their stories. He holds their fate like a deck of cards in his hand. He knows the woman who betrayed her boyfriend will be hunted down and murdered by him after he escapes from prison. The Russian will be killed by a top American agent, and his purloined information will be recovered long before reaching Moscow. And the framed man will find his girl was in cahoots with the bastard who set him up. The girlfriend will go to prison. Her illicit lover will be sent to the gas chamber. The vindicated victim will marry his secretary and live happily ever after. Another train whistles to a stop. The ancient janitor lights up a fresh smoke and deals out a fresh hand of fate.
Roger will return aboard this evening's track, but first, a fresh soul stepped within these unmerciful confines to ride eternally upon my train. From Long Island he arrived, forever he shall travel. This unsuspecting traveler of which I speak is Michael Thomas Knight, who exchanges his mortal soul for his sinful story of death and fate. His story called Steel Deliverance.
Ticket, please. Steel Deliverance by Michael Thomas Knight. The rain distorts my vision, transposing dream to reality, or reality to dream. I'm not sure which. It's 3:15 a.m. I stare out my bedroom window, my sleep interrupted, my sanity once again in question. Through darkness and sheets of rain, I watch the cars move slowly along distant tracks. The grind of steel on steel, the metallic squeaking and scraping, radiates through the stormy night as the train creeps along. The third rail brightens silhouettes of the train cars with a snap and a crackle. Blue and white electronic light spills out from under the cars and illuminates gray metal like a camera's flash. A moment later, a flash in the sky duplicates the light, and a smack of thunder follows. I try to peer into the car windows, little gray squares from this distance. They are dark and unrevealing, but I know eyes are staring out at me. I feel them like burning embers of a fading campfire, heat on my face. Seen or unseen, they exist, and they call to me. Why? What task would they have me perform at such an ungodly hour? I stare at my second-floor window, my face twisted with distress and frozen in stone, motionless and solid in the night like a gargoyle perched upon a rooftop ledge. My mental answer is no to any question this transporter of the spirit world would ask. The train picks up speed. The last car passes the parallel of my house, and the whistle cries out, not like a die-cast manufactured train, but like souls in agonized harmony. Its last howl, away in the distance, screams. "Back to hell with you," I say. But the sound is cut short by a bright flash and a loud crack of thunder, and shakes the foundation of my home. I return to my bed and lay for a time, unmoving. I drift back into sleep. My heart rate returns to normal, and my mind settles from the anxiety of my vision. When I fall into deep sleep, I dream. I dream of souls going to limbo, transported by a flame-breathing locomotive. Spirits scream in the cars as the train barrels down the hot rails to hell. I dream of people who have ended their lives on the tracks, patiently waiting as the massive metal god plunges forward, baptizing them in their own blood in a violent steel deliverance. I then dream of a woman I once knew, a strange and carefree sort, a fallen angel who landed in my arms. I now realize she is the only one I will ever love. It is she who imposes upon this malevolent hell train to summon me from my sleep. She lures my attention and demands my presence. She calls, always at this time of year. October 3rd was the day we met. We fell into a whirlwind relationship, which ended a year later. For a full decade, I denied the invitation to see her again. I shall deny her no longer. Morning makes its subtle entrance into gray-clad skies as I head off to work. I can only think of her on this gloomy day. She was very much like the passing storm clouds, unrestricted and all-encompassing. Her free spirit and spontaneity attracted me. The constraints of society could not bind her. The intentions of others could not quell her wishes. Time or space, routines or rules, all were meaningless to her. Years later, she continues to defy reality. Her name was Cassandra. Our relationship was, from the start, a roller coaster ride of rebellion and recklessness, a love-hate tug-of-war, a collision of emotions that exploded into bouts of vengeful, scarring fights and episodes of passionate, all-consuming lovemaking. A full year of euphoric highs and morose lows was all my mind could take. I was coming apart at the emotional seams. It was all my mental state could handle just to call her. I decided I couldn't take it anymore. We had to split up, and I had to tell her. I remember the night as if it were yesterday. On many occasions, Cassie and I would walk the tracks of the railway line running through our town. The railway areas were draped with trees and vegetation, a mini jungle cutting through the center of suburbia. Between passing trains, the area was transformed into a slender sanctuary, quiet and isolated. Rarely would we see a soul. It was as far away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life as we could get. It was the third night of a fight that had started. For what reason? I could not say. Cassie left a brief message on my voicemail telling me to meet her at the Belrose train station at 9 p.m. Without a word spoken between us, we climbed down from the train platform onto the tracks, darting out of the station area and into the darkness. As soon as we were a distance from the station, Cassie started babbling about some pettiness that meant nothing. I cut her off. "Cass, we have to talk." "What the hell do you think we're doing? Have you been listening?" "No, this is serious. Listen." I shut my eyes and massaged my forehead between my thumb and fingers. "I can't do this." "Do what?" she quipped. "Us. I mean us. It's over, Cassie." As soon as I said the word over, Cassie stopped walking. I stopped 2 steps later. "Over? What do you mean, over?" She grabbed me and spun me around to face her. She wanted to look into my eyes, to gauge if I really meant what I was saying. I looked her straight in the face, so she would know how serious I was. I kept my emotions at bay, and tried to speak with conviction. "I do love you. I think I love you, but I don't know if we are good for each other. I think we're not." For the first time since we had met, she looked vulnerable. Tears welled up on her lower eyelids, and her lips quivered. "Not good for each other," she repeated in a soft, childlike voice. "I just need time away from you, for a while," I said, trying to keep eye contact. "You can't do this to me, to us. You promised to love me forever." "I promised my love to you," she said. "I know what I said, Cassie, and I know what you said. It was all new. We were falling in love, but now we are falling out of love. It's about time one of us admits it. Look at us. Our lives are shattered. I haven't been showing up for work. I'm 2 months late paying the rent. You stopped going to art classes. It's not good." "It's a woman, isn't it?" "Cass, it's nothing like that," I argued. "It's you. I don't want to see you anymore, and that's it. It has nothing to do with anyone else or anything else. This will be better for the both of us." Her hands went up to her face to cover her mouth. She gasped. Tears rolled from her eyes and down her fingers. Could it be that she really didn't see this coming? Did she really think our relationship was good? For the last 6 months, we hardly even talked. It was just fight, then fuck, fight, then fuck. But she truly looked surprised. Part of me wanted to grab her quivering body in my arms and hug her. Tell her I didn't mean it. Tell her I was wrong and we should be together. That I do love her with all my heart, and I will never question that again. But I had to be strong. I had come this far, and I knew that this was our only chance at a clean break. I had to take the last few steps out of the hypothetical door and be done with her. "I want the keys to my apartment back," I said. I hoped the finality of those words would be the last blow. She stared into my eyes, searching for a sign of remorse. I gave her none. She was broken, a lost child standing before me. It's okay, Mark. You can see other women if you want, but please just don't leave me." She reached shaking hands toward me. I backed away. I needed this to end. Words came to me, harsh words, like the fall of the guillotine blade. I barked out the icy sentence. "Forget the keys. I'll just have the locks changed." Cassie's whole body jumped, as if a hiccup went through her as my words delivered a hard slap. She grabbed my collar. I pushed her back and her fingers came free. Sobbing hysterically, she rushed forward and grabbed onto my shirt again. I pushed her to arm's length, but she held on. "Please, Mark, no!" She tugged and clawed. She meant never to let go. I pried her fingers from my shirt, one by one, bending them backward. "Mark, please, don't leave me!" I got her fingers loose and gave her a forceful shove. She sprawled to the ground hard. Tears shot from her eyes. She wailed as she crawled forward. I pulled my foot back when she reached for it. "Goodbye, Cassie," I said. I turned my back to her and walked away, leaving her lying on the ground in a pool of tears. She wailed even louder, her breath coming from deep inside, a guttural sound as if she were pouring all the emotion of her heart out through her lungs. I shuffled down the embankment into a space that led through the shrubbery. Through gasping cries, she screamed, "Please! Please! Please!" I continued to walk like a militant on a mission, knowing I was doing the right thing. She was a wild child that liked to party, and nothing was going to change that. The trait that originally drew me to her had turned to acid and eaten away at my life. My mind and world were melting. I needed order in my life, and I wouldn't find it with her at my side. I knew this. I was far from the tracks and pressing my way through the brush. I figured if I cut straight through, I could find a hole in the fencing and come out on Granger Street. From there I could get to Jericho Turnpike and take a bus back uptown. I heard Cassie's distant voice call out in the wind, "Come back! Please, come back!" I continued through the brush, pretending not to hear, even though part of me wanted to run back to her. I heard her voice again, like an echo in the wind, coming from multiple directions. "My love is for you only," she shouted, "and that's the way it will be for all eternity. If you won't have my love, no one will." The distant whistle of an approaching train made me think about what she had said. Her distress about the breakup, combined with those words, aroused my concern, but I had to let it go. She would survive. She was a fighter. She'd hurt, but she would get over it. The train whistle called again, this time more pronounced. Her words reverberated in my head. For all eternity, no one will. I heard the rumble of the locomotive engine. It was still far off in the distance, but it carried through the night, drifting in the breeze. Then it hit me, softly but insistently. I stopped walking, thinking about her words again. "Nah," I said. However, I couldn't shake the creepy feeling that was invading my mind. I looked over my shoulder and tried to shrug it off, but I couldn't. I turned and headed back the way I had come, all the while denying she was capable of the unspeakable. I had to check. I assured myself that she had already left and gone home, but I still had to check for my own peace of mind. The locomotive rumbled, growing to a steady roar. A sense of urgency overwhelmed me as I made my way through the brush. Thick vegetation surrounded me. Disoriented, I pushed myself faster and harder. Twigs and branches smacked me in the face and scratched my arms. The train pushed faster and harder, matching my efforts. I felt the vibration from the tracks in my feet, and the locomotive's wheels made intermittent shrill shrieks that grew louder with each cry. I made a last-ditch effort to free myself from the strangling shrubbery. I ran, but barely moved. The foliage grabbed at me, purposely trying to hinder my advance. I broke free, spilling to the ground in the clearing. Rocks scraped my body, making me bloody as I tumbled. I jumped to my feet, looked up at the embankment, and witnessed my worst fear. Cassandra stood on the tracks between the rails. The light beam from the locomotive shined on her like a spotlight, and the deafening roar of the train blotted out my cries for her to run. She waited apathetically as the train closed the final gap. A moment before impact, she turned to me and mouthed the words, "I love you." Then she disappeared. The massive, speeding train pulverized her body. Parts of her flew in all directions. Small pieces of soft tissue hit me in the face and stuck to my skin. A piece of bone raced through the air and penetrated my leg like a steak knife. I looked down at the flesh hanging from it. It rained blood, and I screamed. Small droplets showered my skin like a fine hot mist, covering me, and everything around me in red. I looked at my arm and dragged my finger through the blood, making a swirling line on my arm. I lifted my finger and looked at the red liquid, unsure or in denial about what it was. I heard the squeal of the train's brakes as it quickly passed me and moved off into the distance. I looked up and saw pieces of Cassandra everywhere. I raced around, collecting what I could see. A foot, her left hand, part of a leg. Did I have some idea of putting her back together? The world spun into darkness, and I passed out. Later, the police told me that when they arrived, I was sitting Indian style, rocking and cradling a heap of unrecognizable flesh. Now, it is 10 years later, October 3rd, at 2 a.m. I head up the stairs at the Belrose train station and onto the platform. At this hour, there is rarely a soul seen at the station, especially on a work night. I scan the area to ensure my stealth and jump from the platform to the tracks. I walk the long journey for the first time in many years, as if I were another person in another life, or a story from a long-forgotten book. The railroad ties pass under my feet at a steady rhythm. The dark, ominous trees sway overhead in the autumn winds. Occasionally, I pass a familiar signpost, and a sweet memory tries to purge my heart. This is where Cassandra and I first made out, sitting upon that fallen tree. I scatter my thoughts, trying to block these memories. I bow my head and concentrate on the passing parallels, sometimes counting them to occupy my mind. I will show her no emotion on this night. It is over between us, and she must know this. I must get on with living. I am overwhelmed when I arrive at the place I last saw her. Dread intrudes upon my soul, and my emotions lock a grip of desperation upon my heart. All the love, the magic moments, and the experiences we had surface at once. A maelstrom of sights and sounds flashes before my eyes and in my ears. Tears course down my cheeks in a silent cry. The dark power of her engulfs me. Like a black cloud swallowing a small plane, she is a violent storm that will not recede. I feel her presence, and it demands a reckoning. She is in the trees, and on the tracks, her ambience plastered to my skin and riding along the wind simultaneously. She is here, yet she evades me. What kind of evil hell-bitch game is this? Is this her revenge? A torn man with a torn heart. Is that what she wishes to leave here upon the empty tracks? I scream at the trees, at the sky, at the wind, and perhaps at nothing at all. Where the hell are you? I'm here. Show yourself. I pause a moment. Cassandra, I know you're here. I can feel you. I smell you. I taste you. The wind continues to whip fallen leaves into small swirling communities. Tree branches sway like giant waving hands, greeting friends on opposite sides of the tracks. I stand alone. No one to greet me. A jilted lover waiting in vain. Has this all been my imagination? Am I alone here, wishing for something impossible? I scream for her again, this time so loudly it causes the veins in my temples to bulge. Cassie, I love you. Show yourself to me, damn it. I am here for you, because I love you. Won't you even talk to me face to face? At once the wind stops. The leaves stop their incessant swirling. Trees cease waving, and the black-gray sky halts its relentless whispering. It's as if the natural world has fallen silent to stare in disbelief at the ranting lunatic in its midst. It is so quiet, it seems I can hear for miles. As if in answer to my cries, I hear one lonely howl of a train whistle scream through the sleeping town. Now, I know she is coming, and I wait patiently. A pinpoint of light appears at a distance on the track line. The metallic beast thunders forward, piercing nature's hush with a quaking growl. I imagine how she will look when the train stops and my dear Cassandra comes strolling out from one of the cars. She will strike a hard glance at me, punishing, but with a trace of longing and eagerness. I will help her down from the steps, and we will walk through the path along the tracks as we did years ago, in our private, slender, suburban sanctuary. I will not allow her to leave me again. We will be together. We were meant for each other. The train advances towards me, the circle of light growing like the rising moon. The tracks rumble under my feet and my heart beats its rhythm. Anticipation intensifies with the thought of being once again with my love. I stare at the growing light and notice something odd. A silhouette is breaking its encompassing beam like an eclipse. The train races towards me, and the sight becomes even clearer. I now see Cassie. The outline of her body sways in a seductive dance as she rides the front of the locomotive like a living masthead. Her hands glide along her sides, and she clutches at her breast. Her other hand moves between her snow-white thighs. She stretches and bends, twists and writhes, her black hair whipping chaotically from the speed of the train racing forward. She grabs and rips at her flowing white dress to expose her breasts and stomach. She arches her back in ecstasy. She puckers her lips for a kiss and reaches her arms forward to receive me in her embrace. Enthralled and seduced, I open my arms for her. The locomotive closes the final gap, bringing my love back to me. My Cassandra, we will now and forever be together.
As Michael is escorted by those undead to his permanent seat, Roger Cowin once again hands the conductor his bloody ticket. This time it reads Ghost Train.
Ticket, please. Ghost Train by Roger Cowin. Crossing the ghost lands of the vast American night, the iron beast steams steadily along its tracks, treading the shadows of the October country, through haunted landscapes of schizophrenic geometry, passing fields of drying, mottled corn, where ragged straw men raise their arms in supplication to strange gods, through forests of ash where autumn trees grasp for the funeral gray skies with withered limbs, past those corrupt, polluted cities of the damned. The Nightmare Express rolls on and on, eating the miles east to west, leaving only the stench of sulfur and brimstone in its wake. The innocent shiver in their beds as it rumbles by. Even the righteous fear to glimpse the sight of its demonic cyclopean eye, slicing through the midnight fog. The engineer, cap cocked jauntily back to reveal his horns, taps his cloven hooves in time to the tortured cries of the passengers, their faces contorted in abject horror as the destination comes ever nearer with each passing mile. The skyline of Detroit, ablaze with the fires of Devil's Night, appears on the horizon, a portent of what's to come. The shrieking of the passengers rises as the engineer increases speed, plunging the train into the black, inky waters of Lake Michigan. As the ghost train passes out of the mortal realm, the engineer pulls the brake hard. The steel wheels wail against the iron track like the agony of whipped dogs, until the iron beast grinds to a halt at that old depot way down under, where the wicked and wretched all wind up. Happily, the conductor announces, "Deboarding, Tartarus, Abaddon, Hades, next stop Greece via the Acheron, and thanks for traveling the Diabolus Express."
Are you ready to join them? Perhaps another story will lure you. Choose a car, any car, for the next time we add a permanent guest as they tell their tales of horror at its best. Come, yes, join me. My name is Terror, who rides the rails eternally upon the terror train.
Survived this trek? No turning back. Dare resist, just try. Step back inside, we'll be your guide. So many ways to die. Upon this ride, nowhere to hide. With us, you shall remain. Upon this ride, this hellish ride, we call the Terror Train. Terror Train, Podcast, Episode 102, Chicago, Long Island, and Detroit. Produced by Krista Grabowski, David Schütz II, and Mary Genevieve Fortier. Podcast directed and arranged by David Schütz II. The Conductor, your narrator, was played by David Schütz II. Terror, the Disembodied Voice, was played by Mary Genevieve Fortier. Terror Train Podcast opening and closing poems written by Mary Genevieve Fortier. Host segment dialogue for Terror, the Disembodied Voice, written by Mary Genevieve Fortier. Production music, The House of Leaves, Chase Pulse, The Hive, and The Voices by Kevin MacLeod in Compotech.com. Featured works, Midnight at the Train Station, written by Roger Cowin. Production music, Spatial Winds and The Dread by Kevin MacLeod in Compotech.com. Steel Deliverance, written by Michael Thomas Knight. Production music, Unnatural Situation, Red Letter, Unrelenting, One of Them, Nervous Piano, and Land of the Dead by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com. Ghost Train, written by Roger Cowin. Production music, Blue Sizzle and Long Note 4 by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com. Podcast program edited by David Schütz II. The stories and poems presented in the Terror Train podcasts are all featured in the James Ward Kirk Publishing Anthology, Terror Train, which was edited by Krista Grabowski and A. Henry Keene. Cover art by Stephen Cooney. Content copyright 2014. Terror Train Podcast Episode 102. Chicago, Long Island, and Detroit. Copyright 2014.